Hi everyone, I'm glad to be here. My name, as you just heard, is David Cuen, and I am a community enthusiast, right? I could talk about being a community builder or a community strategist, or we can find out any other fancier job titles. But I do think that if you work in communities and if you work on building communities, you need to have enthusiasm. That's part of the job. You need to do it. You need to breathe it. You need to be passionate about it. And I've been working with communities, building communities, designing strategies for communities in different places, different brands like the BBC in London. I worked at Instagram for 5 years around the corner in Menlo Park in San Francisco. And now working at Booking.com in Amsterdam. So I'm really happy to be here and sharing this space with all of you. Now, that's sort of like my recent history, but I've been working with communities for over 25 years. When I first started, it was all text. It was all connecting with people who have, a general interest close to you, particularly in a physical location. It was all about academia in a very complex internet architecture. But what's super interesting to me is that the mission back then, when you talked about communities, and the mission now, it's exactly the same. You basically get people together who shared one passion, and then amazing things happen. It was the same back then, it's the same now. Now, back in the day, obviously, you were constrained by how many people have an internet connection or whether you were in a university or not. But as the internet grew, our ability to connect with the world also increased. And you were able then to connect with like-minded people from all over the world, which to me is a really beautiful thing because it means that you can connect with people from different cultures, different languages who share the same passion. So let's try to do a little bit of a test here. By show of hands, tell me how many of you live in the US? How many of you live in the United States? Okay? And now how many of you live outside the United States? Right? Not surprising, so the majority of you live here. And that is because we are constrained to a physical location, right? So we're going to be surrounded by people who live in the same space, in the same area. Now, the opposite is true when you think about the internet, social media, web apps, etc. We are actually the minority. We might be the only ones or one of the few that are part on one location, but actually we connect with people from all over the world. The internet has enabled us to do that, and that is amazing. Thinking about that and thinking about how could I build a community at a place like Booking.com is what actually attracted me to change roles and to go there. Because I was really, really in love with Booking.com's mission. And that mission is making it easier for everyone to experience the world. Now, if you think about Booking, and if you've used Booking, you probably understand that, in the past, we were a transactional brand, very transactional platform. You know where you wanted to go, you went to Booking.com, booked your hotel, and then got out of there. And came back only when you had another trip. That was it. Very transactional, very straightforward. But we are now trying to change that because we really want to be the top travel brand in the world, which means we need to change from being transactional to actually being a powerful brand. That means that we're no longer going to be only for you when you know what you want to do. We are making you a promise. We are making you a promise of actually helping you to experience the world. And how do we do that? Well, you all know that we started with accommodations, hotels, homes, etc. But now we've expanded into flights and car rentals and rides and attractions, you name it. But now we're also building a community. Why are we building a community? Well, because if you think about it, we are fulfilling two different kinds of jobs for our customers, for our users. One, which has been our tradition, our history, is a very functional job. Help me book travel, period. That's it. But now we're trying to fulfill a second job, which is help me experience travel, which is completely different now. In order to do that, we need to have a community of users, of people who are really passionate about travel to help us make that happen. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. If you think about Booking.com, would mean that, people come to us, but no longer care about just reading, a hotel description what we offer. They don't care about that. Sure, they read it. They read what they can do in an attraction, but what they are super interested in is to read guest reviews, to actually read what other people have experienced all over the world when they go and stay there. If you have young children, you want to know that a hotel is good for children. If it's dogs, right? I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. I don't travel with my cats, but I travel with my dogs, and so I look to see if there are pet-friendly hotels out there. And so it's super important that I hear from others and that I read that they experience the same thing. That is incredibly, incredibly important. And that's why we are really trying to build a brand that can rely on people, that can make sure that people understand what they can experience. Because if you think about it, we are in an age of human validation. And human validation is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. We really are seeking to find out what other people did. Think about it from a negative point of view and from a positive point of view, right? The negative point of view, COVID, the pandemic. It hit, it started, everyone went to the supermarket to buy toilet paper. And everyone did exactly the same thing. Went to the supermarket to buy more toilet paper. Why? Because we do what we see, right? We look for that human validation. It's in our nature to do it. More recently, I missed my flight on Monday from Amsterdam because the queues, the line at the airport, at the Schiphol, are insane, right? Are insane because there's a shortage of staff when it comes to security, so you have to queue a lot to get there. But why is that happening? Well, turns out that people are getting there 6 to 8 hours in advance of their flight, so that they don't miss the flight, right? So if you're there and you're in line, 75% of people in front of you have a flight that is probably 3 or 4 hours after your flight. So you're going to miss it because that's what's happening. We're seeing that in social media, we're seeing it in news, and so you're like, oh, I have to go to the airport well in advance. So we do this thing constantly. Now, that's kind of like a negative light into this. But it's also very positive. If you think about using apps like Waze, for example, right? If you're driving and suddenly you can change route because someone alerted you or alerted the app that there's an accident or a roadblock or anything like that. And so because you're benefiting from it, chances are you're going to do the same thing when you're using the app. You're going to be helping others. Think about reviews in Amazon, think about reviews in Booking.com. We are trying to get the best out of this human validation. So my team, in fact, has kind of like 3 touch points when it comes to human validation. One is reviews that I talked about. So we designed the policies about what's allowed and not allowed in those reviews. We're trying to make it super clear to the user what's allowed and not. It used to be very binary, black, white. Now it's all about all the multiple interpretations that you can have when you're looking at the review. We implement those reviews. We try to make people, we're trying to inspire people to share photos and things like that in reviews. Then we also do user-generated content. So we enable all these channels for people to share their own experiences when they travel. And finally, we have a big community, and we call them the Travel Ambassadors community. And we do this by basically onboarding people who are super passionate about travel and their own sort of like hometown or local place, and they want to help others. And we do this on a platform called Travel Communities. And in fact, we're super excited because in a few more weeks, we're going to be launching a new platform with the help of our friends from Chorus. If you haven't seen them, they're in the sponsorship tent, so go and have a talk to them. They're really great, and we're working with them to launch a new platform over the coming weeks. This is important because these ambassadors have given us a lot of their time and effort to help other travelers. The most interesting part of this is that we started the program in the worst possible year at the worst possible time. Guess when? Yeah? Any ideas? 2020, during COVID, indeed. And you may think that we were crazy because we do that, but you might think that we're even crazier because we actually did it on purpose. And the reason why we did it on purpose back then, it was evident that people were really seeking information about what was happening in certain destinations, whether they could travel there or not, what were the entry requirements, and sure, there were tons of government websites that you can consult to see whether that was possible or not, but people wanted human validation. They wanted to talk to other people who were there on the ground. They wanted to rely on local experts to tell them what was happening. And so we created this program. But it quickly became apparent that it wasn't only about COVID. These people, these ambassadors, were so passionate about it that they really wanted to help people with all their travel frictions. They didn't want to leave any stone unturned. They wanted to help others. They were super passionate about it. They wanted to give them answers. If you think about the word community in the physical world, right? We are there because we want to help each other, right? You share values or principles or allocation, and you want to help your community. And it's exactly the same thing in the digital world. These people are local champions and digital ambassadors because they really want others to experience their hometown, their location. So they've been sharing this knowledge with more because they know that if they breathe that passion, other people will be passionate too. They will be able to help them out. The secret to any community really is to have a core group of users who are able to help others, to give them value, information, and on the other hand, a captive audience who sees the value and the benefit of that community. And when those two things come together, you really have a strong community and strong possibilities. The possibilities are really, really endless. Once you have that though, then the next step is scale. Once that flywheel is spinning, how do you scale it? Well, there are multiple ways of doing this. One of the ways we do it is through languages and localization. So through a mix of human localization and human translation and our own machine learning models, machine translation, we actually add more and more languages. And that's incredibly important. It's incredibly important to be able to support several languages and not only English, because when you have that passion, that scale, languages, then a lot of things can happen. Think about it this way. 94% of people all over the world don't speak English as their native or first language. And 75% of people all over the world do not speak English at all. 75% of people. So you really need to be able to speak in their own language. And that's how we are scaling this platform. Once you do that, amazing content comes flying through the doors. And we've seen that, right? Because people can speak in their own language. They can post in Italian, they can post and speak in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Japanese, you name it. It'll be translated and they can connect with a global audience and they can share more and more content. And then they share images, they share text, and they share images like these beautiful images that you see here from Germany, from the amazing mountains in South Africa, and from Savannah in Georgia. So you have all of these amazing photos coming through. And this is just a tiny example. Now, our ambassadors not only create tons of content, right? Not only are content producers, they are also content enablers. What that means is they inspire others to post more and more images and more content. It's incredibly important to give your community an opportunity to share content because that's how they connect with each other. And they do amazing, amazing things. And the beauty of it is that the more content you have, then it's just like a closed loop. You're going to be able to solve more travel frictions. You're going to be able to solve other people's problems because you have the content to tailor that particular scenario. And obviously, I've been talking about different cultures and languages and things like that. And what I really like about the program is that these ambassadors share one passion, which is the love for travel, the love for their hometown, but they have different cultures, different languages, and different personalities. We're all human, right? So it's amazing to see how they tackle problems in many different ways. You have people like Adele at the top. She was amazing during COVID. Like she was informing everyone like on a constant basis about what was happening in Vietnam, what were the regulations, what was going on, answering questions from every single person who had one, right? She was really, really all about information. And Christy, who's from here, from the US, she's more about the journey, and she loves road trips, and she loves to talk a little bit about how you can experience the country during the journey, not as a final destination, but actually as a whole journey. And she's very passionate about that. And Vicky from Spain is more about connecting with people, giving them suggestion topics, and you can see her not only commenting on other people's posts, but actually commenting on other ambassadors' posts. She's really like a people's person, and she really loves to do that this way. I've talked a lot about these ambassadors, about their passion, about what they do, about how they come together. But actually, I think it's better if you hear directly from them, because we have a few of them here to speak to you.
The most important part of being ambassador for me is to connect with other travelers, because we can learn from our experiences each other, and we can share knowledge to discover a new world.
I love being part of this program because I love travel and I like helping other people to experience the world too.
I connect with other travelers. The reasons why is I don't know them and I can share my experience and my passion with these travelers.
My favorite moment of being ambassador is during pandemic. I shared information about opening up the border of Japan. There was many information, but mostly they were in Japanese. So foreigners who want to visit Japan had a difficult time to understand what is the latest information.
One of the things I realized is people are asking about places I've already been, like New York City and to Florida. Those are places that I can help people out because I've already been there.
One thing people should know about the Travel Community's Ambassador Program is that if you love traveling and if you love to share your experiences, you can be part of it. You don't have to be super professional travelers or travel bloggers. We share our knowledge and experiences. That's simple.
All you need to know is how to research, and you can help people out.
You can connect with a lot of different people that have the same passion as you.
So these are the ambassadors, and what's really interesting is what they said about not being a professional blogger or a professional creator. You know, we've always talked about the creator economy and how more people are becoming creators nowadays, but I think the important part and the beauty of this community is that they just have this passion. They just want to do something with the information they have. It doesn't matter if they're professional photographers or if they're professional writers. They just want to help other people out. And we have a program to onboard them. We have a form that they can sign in to become ambassadors. We have sessions with them. We re-engage with them constantly. We send them information. We try to do fun things with them. And whenever possible, it's a big world, but whenever possible, we meet them in real life and try to connect with them as well, because that is incredibly important. It humanizes the brand so much, but we're also getting so much in return, all this content that they are providing and they are doing with us. And that's incredibly amazing. By a show of hands, if I ask you, who has a trip planned here over the next 3 or 4 months? Perfect. Okay, that's a great plug because that means that you can become ambassadors of Booking.com then. But beyond the plug, actually, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to share is why this matters, right? I worked in communities for a long time, and I've realized that sometimes, particularly all of you here who are working on this space, it may seem like it takes forever for a community to kick off. That you're making, you're putting a lot of effort, you're taking a lot of steps for it to really grow, and it's not happening as fast as you want it to happen. But I can tell you, it always happens. If you really put the time and effort, the core community, those first sort of like group of people that you're recruiting, are the most important ones. So that high touch point, that high human connection that you do at the beginning with the first group of community users, it's so important. It's really important because it means that then they know you're taking the time, you're investing the effort to do that. When we started the program, we set our goal to recruit our first 150 ambassadors in 1 year. And, may seem like a little number or a big number, depending on how you look at it. But just making the effort to recruit those first 150 was incredibly important, because then you can scale it. It takes time, it takes effort, but then guess what? They help you scale your community. This has happened here at Booking.com, but when at my time at Instagram, it was exactly the same thing, right? Like, it started when it had been just acquired from Facebook, and we were trying to get people to feel part of a community. And we were doing a lot of these things manually, right? Like putting people into suggested user list and trying to do that and trying to help with curation and all of those things. It took time and effort, but by doing that, organizing Instameets, doing all of these efforts, worldwide Instameets, etc., we were able to create that sense of community. And then it just kicks off. And there's a point where you're actually not as involved as community team, because they are doing it they're doing everything for you, right? Like, worldwide Instameet became this phenomenon that they took care of making sure that it was a success. They basically took it into their own hands, and that was amazing to see. Takes time, takes effort, but actually it helps you out. So never lose patience, never lose the sight of these. And for us, working with these travel ambassadors really is all about this shared commitment. And this is something that I think we've had here over the past few days, which means if you share the same mission, if you share the same passion, which in this case is making it easier for everyone to experience the world, they will work with you. They will create content with you because it's serving the shared mission, the shared purpose. And that is really, really important not to lose sight of. Anyway, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks. Any questions? Yeah, thanks.
Hi, I'm Logan from Meta, and I'm wondering how you organize your own team to converse with everybody across these different languages. Is it like decentralized by region, or do you handle it all with a central team?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for languages, what we do is we have, one of my teams actually looks after machine translation and human translation, which means we basically, for this particular community, we use machine translation only. Now, the thing with machine translation is that you need to make sure that whatever model you use and come up with makes it easier for people to understand what's being said. You shouldn't be, at least that's from like my perspective, incredibly strict about the quality. You never aim for like 90% quality of like the machine translation model, but you should aim for a good quality that if I read it, I understand the meaning of what's happening, right? So we use that, and we use machine translation to actually get this sorted. At the same time, our team and the community team actually has to manage a lot of these relationships and conversations. It's not easy, but sometimes what you do is we actually recruit some ambassadors who are able to speak the language and speak in English as well, so the communication flows in an easier way. Yeah. Yes.
Hi. So it's clearly that ambassador program is very, very important for a brand. But my question for you specifically, what business goals are this program is generating for Booking.com?
Yeah, great question. And I actually liked Laura Nestler's conversation the other day, if you heard her in the theater, because she was talking about being focused and actually driving business value. It's super simple for us. It has like two super important goals from a business point of view. One is the more you're able to solve travel frictions that people have, and believe me, they have a lot, like the more they go and then book in your site. It's like super straightforward, super straightforward. I think we didn't do that in the past, and that was a mistake. And now that we're doing it, you actually see the results quite a lot. Like it drives value to the business. I always make this example because at the beginning when I was working on this and working on travel communities, I was like a bit surprised by this. But you would get people to go to travel communities and ask, where do I stay in the center of Madrid, right? And you think, it's Booking.com. It's just like basically you can type Madrid and get a list of hotels. It's as simple as that. But actually what they want is that human validation. They want to hear from others, oh, I stayed in this hotel and it was amazing because A, B, or C. And so when we do that, then they immediately go and find value in the business, and it's valuable for the business as well. So that's the first one, the most important one. And the second one is the content. By having that human, authentic content, then it's easier for us to help other people, even those who are not necessarily visiting our community, right? So, for example, if you go and land on a destination page for London, say, and you read a snippet of a suggestion from an ambassador saying, like, London in November, always bring an umbrella, always bring a raincoat, it rains constantly. And then you read that and you're like, oh, great. So we're anticipating even the friction you have by giving you a suggestion or recommendation, and that helps as well. So those two things.
It sounds like a wonderful program. I wonder if you could share any best practices for keeping your ambassadors motivated to continue to provide great content to keep engaging the community.
Yeah, such a great question. We, particularly over the last few months, we've developed a lot of re-engagement strategies and opportunities. And that means that we connect with them on a constant basis to see how they're feeling, what's happening, what they find valuable and not valuable about the program. And you see that some of them would prefer to respond to questions, and some of them are all about creating content. And then as you start developing that muscle and sort of like tiering them in different categories, you see where you can go when you want to launch a new initiative, right? But the re-engagement is crucial. You can't just start, recruit people, get them on board, get them started, and then forget about them and keep recruiting other people. Not at all. It doesn't work like that. You really need to have other people coming and helping you with that. And by the way, you see her, Ira, over there with the phone. She's also part of the community team, and you can ask her tons of questions about this because she's the one who's actually re-engaging with them constantly. But also, yeah, it's super important to keep them engaged. And what I wanted to say is, you end up, you may end up having 1,000 ambassadors or 5,000 or 10,000, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, this is brilliant, right? Like the Pareto's law is still the champion in this world. You're always going to have a core group that are going to be incredibly active. That are going to be, like the 20% is going to be generating the 80% of interactions and content. Those are the core group. That's why, as I said, it's so important to spend time with them at the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. A quick question about maybe a clarifying question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the ambassador program is localized into 7 languages?
And several, yeah.
Got it. Several.
Yeah, several, yeah.
Got it, okay, got it. All right, yeah. Because my question was really about, is the program in step with the languages that are offered in Booking.com, the product?
Amazing question.
And if not, what are the criteria that are in place to ensure that some of the long tail communities that don't have localized versions yet? How do you do that?
We're adding languages constantly. It's still a fraction of the languages we support across Booking, and the reason for that is if I have to translate a hotel description and its features or an attraction description, it's easier for the model, right? Because it's straightforward information. When you deal with human interaction, there's so much nuance, words, jargon, that it's more complicated. Now, the model, the way it works, is like it doesn't translate only from, let's say we have English, Spanish, French, and German. It doesn't translate only English to Spanish, English to German. No, it has to go across the whole thing. The more languages you add, the more the model has to learn how to translate from Russian to Portuguese to Spanish to English to Japanese. And the more complicated it is, particularly when you have conversations going on. So as I said at the beginning, like, I'm not going to be pressured about, like, I want to have 99% quality, because like, not even humans have 99% quality. Let's begin with that. The machine is never going to get that, but I want to get the meaning of it. So we're adding more, but we're being very thoughtful about it, because you also don't want to mess it up. No worries, yeah. Question, yes?
Do you have any reward system? So I understand the motivation.
Yeah.
Sometimes the intrinsic motivation is always the best.
Yep.
But what is needed for them?
Yeah.
This is their time.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, great question. So the question is about whether we have a reward system or kind of like compensation because they're putting up their time. So I think the crucial thing here is if they do it because they shared your mission and passion, and we're not paying them, it's only intrinsic motivation, it's great, it's fantastic. The moment you ask them to do something outside that, we were having this conversation many times, is when you actually have to reward them. Like you can't just go on and say, like, it's great that you're doing this. If you're going to do something or ask them to do specific things, then you're working and walking into commission territories, and you need to be able to give them some kind of reward, right? So that's important for us, and that's exactly how we guide our thinking, because otherwise it is indeed taking advantage of someone's passion. And then the whole community sort of like falls down, right? But the opposite is true as well. We could have started by offering rewards, but then you're appealing to their extrinsic motivation, and then you never have a community, ever. So it's just important to find that balance.
Thank you, David.
Perfect. Yes.
Please give it up for David Cuen.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.